Hello everybody! Before getting into the video, I'd love to give a huge thanks to GAOMON, the sponsor of today's video. Similar to Wacom or XPpen, Huion, all those kind of companies. GAOMON is a tech company researching, developing, and producing products such as tablets, and essential to us digital artists. From July 19th, Monday, to July 25th, they are kindly running a promotion on their PD156 Pro tablet, which is a 15.6-inch monitor drawing tablet. They were kind enough to send me the tablet to review, and it's definitely on par with Wacom tablets I've used in the past, despite the much cheaper price, and is pretty similar to the Huion tablet I've been using as well. It's a nice size, the screen has an incredible texture that feels exactly like you're drawing on paper, and it makes digital art feel so smooth and easy. This model is easy and convenient to unplug and move around, which is perfect for those who may want to put the tablet away when it's not in use, or you're on the go a lot and you want to take your tablet with you. The Huion tablet I have, not so much. It comes with everything you'd need, so as soon as you get it, you can just download the driver, plug it in, and get to working. Please check out the links in the description to get yours. And if the monitor tablets aren't your cup of tea, be sure to browse their other drawing tablets that might meet your art or budget needs. Thanks again so much to GAOMON for supporting the channel and the artist industry, so be sure to check them out. Alright, let's get into today's video! Today is a storytime video of sorts, talking about some experiences me and even some of my family have gone through. I've talked about bits and pieces before on stream, but I figured it was finally time to give a proper, thorough telling. I do love to hear about other people's experiences, so after you finish watching this, I'd love to hear your stories in the comments. Let me also be clear that I am talking about my experiences, or perhaps my family's experiences, and these are things that I believe based on what I've been through, and unless I ask, I'm not really looking to debate what's real or what isn't. And I'm really not looking for people to try to debunk any of these things. Don't be a dingleberry. Please also be respectful, because this topic and the concept of spirits and what have you, paranormal things, afterlife, all this kind of stuff, can mean so many different things in various cultures or religions. So even if you or I don't believe in what someone else does, I'd still like to leave room for them to be a valid voice in the conversation. I really love various paranormal tales from around the world, so if someone is sharing their experiences and you don't believe in it, that's great, but let's leave them be, please. If you're being a stinky butt in the comments, either you're getting ignored or I'm deleting ya. Alright, let's begin. My first experience doesn't really tie into anything else that much, and it was just a standalone experience, just a one-time thing, but I really felt like it set the tone for everything that was to come later. I was in the basement of my parents' home when I was 2 while my mom was doing laundry. I remember playing with this pink stuffed elephant pillow thing and suddenly being distracted by something I had never seen before. I saw a man who looked older, white hair, a beard. I couldn't tell you what race he was because he was semi-transparent. He looked like one of those laser engraved glass things. He was visibly like a 3-dimensional person, but all of his details were just white, if that makes sense. Even more strangely, he seemed to walk through a solid wall. That blew my little mind. I was almost kind of frustrated. You know, when you're a cute little baby or toddler, everybody's paying attention to you. But this guy's just here, existing, minding his own business, not even acknowledging the fact that I was there. I was perplexed. I tried to find him. He must have gone somewhere. I took a flashlight and tried chasing him around the basement, but no matter what, I could not find him. I went outside and then realized that my flashlight had died. I thought I broke it or something, but who knows? It just stopped working. I don't remember interacting with my parents about it, but they said that they remembered the incident and that I had said I had, quote unquote, found a ghost and was looking for him, and they were shocked as they had no idea how I'd learned that word, especially that young. They thought that this guy was probably my recently deceased grandfather. Personally, I disagree, because the man did not acknowledge my existence whatsoever and phased right through a wall. My grandpa never lived there either. I have no idea to this day who that man was. but it is the first of many experiences that would set off a lifelong interest. Years went by after that incident, and nothing like it had happened. It moved homes, moved states, and had been living in one place peacefully for about 4 years, with nothing happening. Around the time that this next bit happened, I was 8 years old. Things at home started to get a little difficult. This may not sound related to the next part of the story, but I will revisit this later. But for now, keep it in your mind's back pocket. One night, it was bedtime, and I was the last one awake. It was the beginning of November, but it was still warm where I was living, so my hair was in a ponytail that day. I had a bunch of baby hairs that escaped from it after a long day, being an 8-year-old, as 8-year-olds do. I had this paper lantern sort of nightlight thing that spun very slowly. It was next to my bed, which was the top bunk of a bunk bed. I was watching it spinning, its lights patterns on the wall, after who knows how long of doodling and reading books in bed. I was starting to nod off when I noticed that one of my baby hairs, like a chunk of hair, was kind of flipping in a weird way. We didn't have AC on. There was no ceiling fan, or any fan for that matter, in that room, and the windows were painted shut. There was no breeze, and none of my other hairs were moving. It felt like someone was twirling my hair in their fingers, playing with it, but I wasn't really conscious enough to think too much about it. I thought it was maybe my dinky little spinning lantern maybe causing some sort of light breeze, but realistically I don't think that thing could cause much of anything. Not only that, but I was laying on the opposite side of the bed from it. Regardless, I drifted off to sleep. Nothing really happened, but this was the first thing that I noticed that sent the rest of the next few years of my life into a living hell. Things started off pretty easy. I was noticing at night, and only if I was the last one awake, which was frequent due to my sleeping problems existing really early, I would see or feel subtle but eerie things. I would feel what I could best describe as like a finger poking my cheek. I'd freeze up and be too scared to move. When I would get the courage to move and roll over, it would legitimately feel as if the finger press feeling would release. As more time went on, I started to notice the poke feeling would return, and the other cheek that was facing outwards after I turned. Some nights, while I was scared from the cheek poking and eerie feeling that went with it, I would put the blanket over my head. Then I would notice a depression occasionally in said blanket. And on occasion when I've looked up at it, I've seen what looks like the shape of a hand, sometimes the shadow of a hand. Most of the time I was too scared to investigate, but some nights I'd get fed up and flip off the blanket, only to see nothing was there and my sisters were dead asleep. It started off really not bad, just little things like that I would pick up on, but for the most part ignore. But the more I ignored them, the more it happened. The more it happened, the more terrified I became. And the more terrified I became, the more it progressed. After ignoring the poking and the handprints in my blanket, things got a smidge more intense. I started to feel what I can only describe as my eyelids forcefully being pried open when they were closed. It was strange. It was gentle enough to not feel like an actual person was doing it, but it also felt nothing like your eye muscle spasm. It was also the fact that it was usually followed by other things, like the cheek poking and that eerie feeling in the room. Another wonderful thing also started happening, which was tapping on the walls. A lot of the times it was in threes, but sometimes it was random. Either way, it would, of course, only start when I was the only one awake at night, and it sounded like fingernails tapping on the wall directly next to where I was lying. This would continue to happen to me from then on out, no matter what room I slept in. The cheek poke thing stopped when I moved bedrooms, however. The stress in my school life, my home life, and dealing with some severe depression at an incredibly young age, I'm sure that played a factor into this. I started to have sleep paralysis, and I had it often. I wasn't really one to have nightmares, but every once in a blue moon I would. Frequently, however, I would wake up frozen in my bed, just all the time, no matter what the dream was. It happened so often that I got used to it and would fight to wake myself up all the way. I thankfully didn't see anything horrifying other than the occasional black mist once or twice, but every time I had the same horrifying, eerie feeling of being watched and possibly being in harm's way, my dreams also started to get weird. I don't know how to describe it, other than that they would be very vivid, but random. Things that didn't make sense, except there would be bits that would be very, very realistic. Just a smidge. Like a memory that didn't exist. Then within the next week, maybe even more, said thing would occur. In real life. It it would always be something that was not significant, like a pattern of me looking things at a specific order, like being at school and looking up from a school project, into a marker bucket, to the board, to the clock, and then to some specific item that's arbitrary. And it was never the same, but it was just weird. There were times, though, I would feel unsettled in my dreams and then wake up to the eerie feeling. No sleep paralysis, but it's like I was being watched, and I would just wake up abruptly, no matter what the dream was about. One night I was having some arbitrary dream, and I started having that I'm being watched feeling, but I didn't wake up. Instead, I ran in my dream from something that was chasing me until it hit me in the back. That woke me up, and it genuinely felt like I was punched in the back awake. For context, I slept on my side with my back facing out into the room, if that matters any. But I woke from such a shock that I couldn't even begin to describe. Thankfully, that's the only time I remember that happening. Unfortunately, the experiences weren't just weird feelings. I and some other family members had seen things too. One night during that I'm being watched, creepy, on-edge feeling, I rolled over on the bunk bed so my back was facing the wall and I was facing out into the open room. But next to my bed, right next to my face, was the face of a man, similar to the one I had seen in my parents' basement all those years ago. He was like those laser engraved glass things, semi-see-through, and all details in white. It scared the bees out of me because he looked unhappy, very angry, in fact. In a blink or two he was gone, but it scared me. One afternoon, I was walking down our hallway into the living room, and to do so, you pass a door on your right to our kitchen. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a girl standing in the middle of the kitchen, motionless, staring straight at me as I passed her. I stopped after passing the door, turned back around, thinking of my sister to look at her, but once I did that, no one was in the room at all. I shrugged it off and kept walking. The girl was pale with very dark, long hair and a light, if not white, nightgown. These were all descriptors that could easily be one of my sisters, especially the youngest one. However, despite really thinking it was my sister in the kitchen, once I was in the living room, they were both my sisters, sitting there on the couch, watching TV. Another night, again walking through the same hallway, I passed the bathroom door, which is also on the right, but in the middle of the hallway. I saw a man standing in the bathroom facing the toilet with the light off, and I thought it was my dad, although the man looked a little bit taller, possibly also a little older. I stopped after passing to turn around and yell at my dad for not closing the door to pee, but when doing so, the bathroom was completely empty and my dad responded to me yelling from the other side of the house. There are a couple specific incidences that happened to me that I would like to share. These were the scariest. One was, one night, in that same bedroom where everything began, me and both of my sisters were in bed. I was on the top bunk, middle sister on the bottom bunk, and our youngest sister on a mattress on the floor next to it, perpendicular. I was laying in bed quietly, facing the wall, but my two younger sisters were playing and cutting up. Despite my sisters being awake, the eerie feeling, the all too familiar eerie feeling of being watched, and maybe even being in harm's way, the poke in my cheek feeling returned. I felt frozen, but I knew my dad would come in to yell at my sisters to go to bed, so I waited. And of course the time came. My dad came into the doorway and stood to yell at my sisters to STFU and go to sleep. I turned my head towards him, feeling, for the first time, an ounce of relief that my angry dad was in the doorway. The poke lifted. I watched him walk out of the room, and silence enveloped. Then, almost suddenly, with enough force, the poke returned on the cheek that was facing outwards. It almost hurt that time. It was so forceful. I again rolled over, the feeling released, was back to facing the wall as I was before. After I did that, in a voice that I could not possibly describe, I heard, "Hear me out, boo." It sounded faint, but also right next to my head. It sounded like it was through an old radio, and it sounded mischievous and like it was sarcastic. I teared up and threw the blanket over my head. It felt intentional. I don't think the word boo is scary. Obviously, I don't take it in any way serious, but it felt as if whatever this entity was knew it could mess with me. It knew the word boo wasn't scary, but it was how pathetically scared I was, if that makes sense. It sounded like it came out almost as a laugh. It horrified me. It's so simple and not really that scary, but to me at the time, it was one of the scarier things that had happened to me. I had no peace outside of home, no peace at home, and not even the sanctity of my bed was safe. It felt like everywhere I went, I was being watched, being judged, hated, or being messed with. I felt like a nuisance. I felt like I was put on earth for no other purpose than to just be in pain. I wasn't sleeping much. I think sometimes I wasn't even eating much. Every moment I felt on edge. I started to believe, actually, that the negativity going on at home, in addition with the severe emotions I was feeling at the time, was manifesting whatever this was, maybe even making it stronger. And truly, the worst and hardest days I experienced, I also went to bed feeling like I was being messed with. Another one of my most scary incidents occurred a couple years after that one. My aunt and her at the time husband came to visit, and said husband took me and my siblings to Toys R Us and let us pick one thing in the entire store, probably with a dollar amount limit, and let us take it home with us. Could not remember what my baby sister got, but me and my other sister got these 2 pink toy electric guitars. You could plug them in like you would like an electric guitar, but they still played. Like you could pluck the strings and it still made noise. Even if it wasn't plugged in, right? We played with them all day, I think for several days. One night, I'm pretty sure, after our visitors had already left, another bad night happened. I couldn't sleep and felt on edge, so I went into the living room. Due to annoying the absolute beans out of our parents, the guitars were put up on top of the entertainment center so that we couldn't reach them and play with them anymore. They said enough. I laid there trying to calm down from whatever the heck was happening in the bedroom, but I started to hear music coming from the guitars. I thought it was one of those things where you keep doing something all day so it kind of replays in your brain when you go to sleep. Similarly to how if you go to the beach all day when you're not used to it, and you go to lay down at night, it feels like you're swaying in the water still. Despite that, I looked up at them and saw what looked like the strings physically moving, like someone was messing with it. Again, I tried to chalk it up to being tired or thinking I was seeing things. I started to hear the tapping on the walls too, and decided to turn the lights on. That'll make me less scared, or so I thought. The guitar noises seemed to have stopped, but the tapping continued. It went up and down the walls, then seemingly all of the walls at once. I started to see a shadow on the wall behind the lamp. I looked for bugs or something on it, but nothing. Then I called in my dog, who trotted in to save the day. I felt a small wave of relief, but things got worse. My dog looked scared too. She was looking around the room, and especially at the corner with the shadow, perplexed and nervous. I saw what looked like a man in the reflection of her eyes in that corner of the room, but again, try to come up with something. 1.5 million reasons as to why that's not actually what I saw. The tapping continued, but it started getting louder. It seemed to start at one end of the room and wrap around until it got to me, getting more loud and more forceful in the process. The taps became bangs, but it sounded like someone was punching the wall by me. I was surprised no one could hear it or woke up from it, but to me it was insanely loud. I covered my head with my blanket and just laid there freaking out. The bangs got louder and louder, almost until it sounded forceful beyond human possibility, and then just abruptly stopped. Dead silent. I didn't take my head out of the blanket until I woke up next morning. It seemed like it was just me that was going through all of these things, and I felt crazy. If I vented to my parents or woke them up at night because I was scared, I got yelled at and told I was full of dookie, in politer words. My parents pretended nothing was amiss while we were living there, but after we moved out, family members started coming out about their experiences. I thought it was just me and I was going crazy, but several of my family members came out with their stories of their own. My cousin, who visited for a summer to babysit me and my sisters, was sleeping in our living room at nights and told us that he occasionally had a weird eerie feeling. We had this entertainment center that had a glass curio cabinet style thing on the right of the TV that the hallway perfectly reflected into, and of course allowed my parents to know when me and my sisters weren't in bed at late at night when we shouldn't have been while they were watching TV. My cousin would turn on the TV at night when he was feeling uncomfortable, but one night something caught his eye and said reflection over the glass, and he turned around behind him on the couch, looking straight down the hallway, and saw a man's head poking out of the bathroom, looking at him before whipping back into the bathroom at an inhuman speed. At another point, my aunt was staying with us for a little while. This is completely different. I don't remember when. These were completely different times. She too felt weird at nights, and also often kept the TV on to keep herself from feeling scared. My cousin was just 14, but this aunt was an adult, in like her 20s or 30s. Just like my cousin, she too had seen the head of a man poking out of the bathroom looking at her, only to whip back in an incredibly fast speed once she turned around to look at him. Both times nothing was there. Both my cousin and my aunt, who did not even talk to each other, had no idea that either of each other experienced the same thing, described it exactly the same. They said it looked like a man similar to my dad, but a little older and a little taller as well. She had another experience actually, even though her time that she was staying with us was much shorter than my cousin's. She said she was lying on the couch in the living room, the one that was adjacent to the hallway, and said at the very end of the hall, she described seeing a red ball of light on the ceiling. Maybe something kind of similar to like one of those laser light things, like a laser pointer. However, she said it started moving down the hallway towards her, except it stretched into a line and continued until it was above her head, and she threw the blanket above her and didn't remove it until she woke up the next day. My parents, after we had moved out, said that they knew something was up at that house. They said back when we had a computer room, they would hear footsteps down the hall, and we'd hear the sound of the frequency from the monitors and the fan of the computers quiet down as the footsteps passed the room, just like when somebody would walk past, despite no one being there. There was one really odd night that most of us remember, I'm pretty sure. During this time I was a little bit older and had my own room across the hall. My little sisters were still in the room where I used to feel the pokes in my cheeks. My youngest sister, who couldn't have been more than 3 years old at the time, randomly woke up coughing, middle of the night. She hadn't been sick, no stuffy nose, nothing. She was completely fine. But randomly, middle of the night, she just started coughing like she had a really bad cold, nearly gagging. She was coughing for a couple minutes, and then started screaming and crying while coughing. And she did not stop doing this until my mom got up to see what was wrong, and even after my mom came into the room, she kept coughing and crying. In between her sobs, I swear I heard her say, "She won't stop laughing at me," pointing to the corner of the room. A corner that nobody was in. The next day we took her to urgent care and she had bronchitis. It was strange. When we got older, me and my sisters were talking about it, and she told us that when she woke up crying, there was a girl who was pointing and laughing at her for coughing, and it made her cry. It was weird. Thankfully, we ended up moving out of that house. I was relieved to be finally released from that hell that tormented years of my young life, to move past bitter memories, but also felt a little sad to let it go in a way. We ended up visiting this one house. At the tail end of winter or early spring, it was still cold enough to wear jackets or coats and was a little rainy. This day in specific, it was definitely cloudy and I think also a bit rainy, and looked very, very dull and depressing outside. It just really ended up setting the tone for the rest of our experience with this new home. After seeing the inside, which we loved, we went into the backyard, which is the place me and my sisters were most excited about because this is probably where we'd be spending most of our time playing. In the backyard, in the back left corner, there was this little tiny building that was like a mini shed that had a very small greenhouse attachment, and around the back had this equally as small, like carport type thing, like a little awning with a mini roof. It was just big enough for like a ride-on lawnmower, pretty sure. To us, this seemed like a jackpot because it'd be the perfect little clubhouse thing to hang around. We walked around to the back where the mini carport was, walked underneath the awning, and noticed that the ground just below us, at about a 6 foot by maybe 4 foot area, was like in a mound shape. Not too weird, but after we walked on it, we noticed it kind of had a hollow sound. And that compelled us to start stomping on the ground, and it continued to sound like the ground beneath us was definitely hollow. It's kind of like that little echoey sound, you know? Extra eerily, we noticed a freshly dead squirrel, not even within a few feet away from us. I mean, it was creepy, but nothing necessarily alarming, I guess, at least at the time. Me and my sisters wanted to check out the greenhouse, which we were the most excited about. There's no way our parents would use it whatsoever, so it was fair game for us. And it would be so cool to use it as a little hangout spot. We opened the door, stepped inside, and are immediately overwhelmed with the feeling that if we did not get out of there as quickly as possible, we were going to die. We chalked it up to just the eerie feeling of the overall day had anyways, and just calmly left and figured we'd give it another try another day. It was weird. But a few months later, once things warmed up and the sun was out, me and my sister, my middle sister, decided to tackle the greenhouse once more. We wanted to clean out the weeds growing in it and make it a suitable place to play in. We felt normal approaching it, but again, as soon as you step inside of it, you're overwhelmed with almost a suffocating feeling that if you did not get out of there immediately, that you are going to die. I couldn't describe that any other way. Me and my sister didn't say anything to each other in the moment, however, as we walked in, but as soon as we let the door shut, my sister insisted that she didn't want to be in there. I tried to press for why, but she wouldn't say and kept insisting that she did not want to be in there. I was upset that we gave up on trying to make this work, but I too was uncomfortable and didn't want to stay and was relieved to exit. Another time I wanted to enter it solo and give it another stab, again on a sunny, warm day. Maybe my sister's reaction influenced me or something last time. Again, I was fine up until I stepped inside. Before the door could even close, my eyes started to well up and I felt like my life was on the line. I needed to leave as quickly as possible. But I wanted this. I wanted to ignore it. I wasn't some little baby who was gonna let an empty room scare me. I toughed it out and started pulling weeds and twigs out, ignoring the feeling. But the longer I stayed, somehow the worse it got. Every cell in my body was screaming fight or flight, and I didn't even last a couple of minutes. I was out of there running. The feeling lifted as soon as I was outside of it. It was insane. It wasn't just the weird shed that carried the weird experiences though. The inside of the house had its own occurrences. While the first house had a good bit of activity, it seemed kind of playful, if that makes sense. It was like someone was messing with you, or maybe someone kind of noticing you were there. But this new house, however, the energy felt dark. The house was pretty, but when I think back to that house, I always see it almost like it was enveloped in a shadow or a black mist or something. It's so weird to describe. One day though, it was horrifying. I had just come off the bus, running up to the front door to avoid the bees that are by the bushes, and pound on said door, doing the pee-pee dance, because always like clockwork, I was ready to pee myself the instant I got home from school. Usually my little sister would open the door quickly, but nothing. But I really had to pee, so I kept knocking, and when that didn't work, I started spamming the doorbell, seriously about to ruin the jeans I had on. Nothing. I thought maybe something had happened and I forgot about it or something, like my sister's still at school for some reason, some activity, I don't know. But I still really had to pee, so I was about to break into our backyard so I can do my business in the grass when the door finally opened, and my sister was standing there, the biggest kitchen knife that we had, in her hand, shaking and crying, with her face redder than I'd ever seen it. I started to say to her, hey, no matter what I did, I'm sorry, thinking this was some sort of like revenge something, like I pissed her off or something, maybe just from spamming the door or something, but she completely ignored what I was saying and said that she thought someone was in the house. Suddenly, my nearly bursting bladder had somehow shut off and I switched into protective big sister mode and went in and started checking to make sure no one was there. I don't know what I was expecting, but I cleared the kitchen and the living room and made sure there were no unexpected guests, but I turned to look down the hallway and saw a shadow step into my parents' bedroom. Common sense clicked in at that point, and I said, we need to leave, we need to go to a friend's house and call our parents and quite possibly also the police. We didn't even close the front door. We hopped on our bikes and pedaled as fast as we could to our friend's house and asked her mom to use their phone to call our parents. We called our dad, who came home as quickly as he could. He investigated the whole house, checking the windows and doors, and he didn't find anything. Correction, he did see that there's something weird about the bedroom window that was just off, but said it could have been like that before. Nothing that really indicates a break-in, however, and nothing was touched. Nothing was missing, not a hair out of place. When we asked my little sister what happened, she had said that she was in the bathroom and heard footsteps and saw the shadows of said footsteps pacing outside of the bathroom door. She genuinely thought someone was there and was probably going to hurt her. When I came knocking on the door and spamming the doorbell, she was too scared to come out, and when she finally did, she ran for the knife and let me in as fast as she could when she thought she was safe. Nothing ever came from that, but it was really scary. There are many other little things that happen here and there, and a few more little stories after we left the scary house, but it's time to wrap this bad boy up. I'm sure there's many other little things here and there forgotten in time as well, you know? Either way, thank you for listening to my story, peeping my speed paint, and all of that. Let me know what you think and definitely share your experiences below if you have any too. Even if I don't respond to you or heart your comment or something, I try to read them all, and I really love to hear from you. Alright, here are today's art features. Please check out these lovely artist links in the description if you like what you see. These are from our Discord server. Be sure to click the link in the description below to join and make friends. On every other Sunday, we will be doing a community night and watching various videos, so if you feel like you'd like to hang out, please come, feel free. There's a channel to have your art featured in videos like this one. However, I'm backed up and still trying to catch up, so channels have been closed for the time being. But we still do have an art channel and a self-promo channel if you'd like to put your art out there, get feedback, or show off what you got. All art is welcome. And you don't have to be an artist either. Even if you're an art enjoyer or just a casual person, come on in. So long as you aren't a dingleberry. Thanks again, everybody. If you like what you see, please sub to the channel and click that little bell thingamabobber to get your updates. Get your updates. The server does also have like a ping channel for uploads as well if the algorithm hates you and you hate it back. If you want special videos, early uploads, emojis, etc., you can become a channel member! There's always room for more buns. My links will be in the description below as usual, like Twitter, Instagram, etc. Feel free to follow if you'd like, but you don't have to. And once again, big thank you to GAOMON. Their links are in the description below. Make sure that you click those links or peep any codes that they have for you, and get yourself a tablet. Thank you guys so much. Stay safe, stay healthy. Otsukare-sama deshita! Bye.